Nobuaki was a weirdass, an ugly, awkward transfer student who had a past darker than redo of Healer's plot. When some unfinished business from his past resurfaced, Nobuaki was forcefully tasked with the role of protecting his hopeless classmates while they faced a game of death. Nobuaki was introduced to the class as a transfer student and asked to sit at the back beside Natsuko, who tried to befriend him even though he was a shut-in with no communicative ability. When she tried to butter him up by showing him a drawing of their goofy-looking teacher, he ignored her, feeling he'd fumble her if he tried to talk. After class ended, a bunch of other students approached him, trying to make friends, but he was a loner and asked them to let him be. When another student showed up trying to force his compliance, he slapped his hand away and ran out of the class like he peed himself. Some of the students tried to approach him, but the class baddie, Ryona, asked them to let him be, since he ignored her as well. After a while, Nobuaki sat at the back of the school, pondering whether or not he was the class bad boy or the class clown, till he was approached by Natsuko, who didn't seem to leave him alone. When she tried to get him talking, she triggered bad memories of his past, causing him to run away again. The next day, while he sat in class, he was approached by the class leader, telling him he would be a runner in the class relay. When he tried to refuse the offer, Natsuko offered her hands, telling him he'd be in her protection. Later that day, while he sat at the bottom of a staircase, he wondered why he accepted Natsuko's offer, but suddenly overheard other girls talking about her. Learning that Natsuko had lost her parents, Nobuaki couldn't help but wonder how she kept on smiling despite her tragic past. He returned from his flashback and watched Natsuko happily celebrate their victory before taking a celebratory picture. Later that night, he looked at the framed picture and felt he could finally be happy, forgetting his past with the King's Game. However, at midnight, the dreaded King's Game returned with a new message, signaling his nightmare wasn't over. The next day, he was immediately hounded when he got into class, as his classmates laughed at the message, teasing him about a command which proposed he kiss Natsuko. After he denied it and Natsuko told him it was no issue, the class continued to laugh it off, causing him to panic. He told his new classmates that the game was real and he witnessed it firsthand, but they laughed him off, calling him a talentless joker. When he tried to convince them, a classmate grabbed his shirt, telling him to stop yapping, while the other classmates looked at him in disgust for believing such a ridiculous joke. Suddenly, the teacher came in, forcing them to disperse, while the classmate let him go. Later that day, while he was thinking about how foolishly similar his new classmates were to his old ones, he was approached by a female classmate. She told him she wouldn't kiss a random stranger, especially if it was someone as ugly as him, but she knew Natsuko would, since she had feelings for him. She advised him to think about the game seriously and consider whether he felt it was worth it to risk his life. After she left, he fell on the ground and thought about what he should do, eventually deciding that it would be best for him and Natsuko to die first. Later that night, he sat at the baseball field thinking about his pending death until Natsuko showed up at the other end of the cage, asking him how he was faring. She asked him whether she was so repulsive that he couldn't stand to think of kissing her, but rather than answer, he thought about his time with Kiemi, his former girlfriend, making her understand it was a former love. He asked her whether heaven was as fun as the legends claimed, making her laugh at his statement. She decided to climb up the cage like a monkey and dropped down, hoping to properly convey her feelings to the dense dolt. She jumped off the cage and landed in his arms, thanking him for catching her. When she asked him how she could help, he told her she wasn't needed, forcing her to hug him while offering a kiss. After hearing her offer, he pushed Natsuko away, telling her it was not worth it. However, just before midnight struck, she leaned in and kissed him. Upon receiving the kiss and noticing nothing happened, he hugged Natsuko, apologizing for being a moron. He immediately checked his phone to see why they were still alive, and noticed it wasn't midnight yet. He scrolled through his phone and saw that multiple other orders had been sent from the game, causing him to panic again, as one of them was for them to stay awake that night. After seeing the order, he warned Natsuko to stay awake and tell others to do the same. But he was too late, as they had already started dropping like flies. He got the location of the nearest classmate from Natsuko and charged into his house, fighting with his dad for a bit. before eventually getting into the classmates' room and seeing it was too late. The boy had already begun exiting their world, so he stopped it from fully happening and convinced the parents to get an ambulance, given their son now looked like a monster from Transylvania. Before long, multiple other classmates had died, while others waited in the field to hear what he had to say. He told them that they needed to work together, or it would be finished. But they still didn't believe him, with the class thug warning him to stop once again. But a certain bespectacled classmate told them he was telling the truth, as she saw her friend hung to death before getting there. When Nobuaki tried to confirm her statement, he was immediately shut up by the class thug once again, the female classmate who approached him before accused him of being a heartless freak who wanted Natsuko to die with him. When he couldn't defend himself from the allegations, the other students started to accuse him of being involved, causing him to freak out. But the class thug would have no pity, as he landed a Superman punch, dropping Nobuaki to the floor. When Natsuko tried to defend him, the ruffian told her there was no point in saving a killer. He was immediately accused once again, but this time as the mastermind behind it all. When he tried to clear his name, the thug and his goons beat him up on the floor, ready to get rid of him for good. Just then, a message appeared from the King's game, punishing the class thug. When he asked what was happening, he started growing pimples like monsters from a horror anime. He started to bleed from all his holes, till eventually, he popped like a piñata and became a lifeless human SpongeBob. Now free from the shackles of the other thugs, Nobuaki got up, knowing his classmates had now understood the depth of their issue. After the thug died, Nobuaki warned the class, who were beyond scared of what happened, that they could be next if they didn't comply with the rules. Natsuko freaked out, asking Nobuaki if she would die for ignoring the game's order to have special exercises with Teruaki, an ugly classmate. Nobuaki told her it was the only way for her to live, but Natsuko would not have it, as she didn't want to do it with a freak like Teriyaki. When she tried to get him to reveal another way she could avoid it, Nobuaki told her it was left for her to decide with the boy, and told the class about his first time with the King's game. Back at his previous school, the first King's game order was equally disturbing, asking a ruffian to make an inappropriate move on a girl, but he wasn't allowed to by the class, given he was being suspected as the sender. After getting picked on by the class as a degenerate, the fool left, claiming he wasn't interested in her mid-milkers anyway. Naoya, Nobuaki's friend, laughed at the incident, telling his pal it would be a waste if someone as ugly as the ruffian got to play with jugs. Later that night, while Nobuaki slept, he received a message from the game at midnight once again. After he checked, it claimed the freak, and the girl would be punished by relieving them of their lives. But Nobuaki brushed it off as one of the mindless ramblings from the prankster. When he checked the other message, it was another dumb command from the king, asking a classmate named Daisuke and Miseki to link up. After reading through what he thought was jobless stupidity, Nobuaki went back to bed, ignoring the game. The next morning, their teacher appeared in a sorrowful state, telling them that the ruffian and the girl had died overnight. After the teacher left, the class panicked, wondering if the King's game was real. They worried that the students died the same way the message warned them. Misaki, the victim of the next command, wondered if she would die as well if she ignored the King's new order to link up with the nerd. But Chimi told her not to worry, as the incident overnight was simply a coincidence. Her boyfriend, one of the class bad boys named Shuta, appeared, telling her not to do it. He warned that if she did, he would break up with her. After getting his message through to his girlfriend, he charged at the nerd Daisuke, telling him he would kill him if he thought of linking up with Misaki. When Nobuaki saw things were getting rough, he told Shuta to let go, till eventually he did, scoffing at Nobuaki that he meant his threat. Later that day, Nobuaki sat at a riverside, wondering how the class was in such a state. His girlfriend Chiemi appeared, telling him she knew his sorry ass would be at the riverside. After she sat down, he asked her how they would handle things if they were in the same condition as Shuta and Misaki, but she smiled, telling him there was no harm. Just then, they received notifications telling them the class had completed the quest. Nobuaki and Chiemi prepared for the possible trouble to come whenever Shuta met Daisuke. The next day, while Nobuaki walked to school, his friend Naoya joined him, talking to him about the day before. He told Nobuaki that Shuta had been granted a special order and it might cause some trouble, but they immediately let go of their bad thoughts, hoping Shuta would be more mature about it. In the class, Shuta was definitely not more mature about it, as he took Daisuke to the floor and beat him up. When Nobuaki appeared, he dragged Shuta away from the weak nerd. However, the anger in Shuta wouldn't rest, as he teased Daisuke about putting his little log in Misaki. After getting free from Nobuaki, he used his command to order a death for Daisuke, instantly sending the message to all their phones. After seeing he was now in grave danger, even after doing a task, Daisuke ran out of the class, scared for his life. Nobuaki shouted at Shouta, who laughed at Daisuke, claiming it was what he deserved. Later that day, Nobuaki approached Daisuke on the school roof, asking him how he felt. When Daisuke didn't listen, claiming he was scared for his life, Nobuaki assured him everything would be fine. To get Daisuke to calm down further, he told Daisuke of his dream to become a musician, making Daisuke smile as well. The nerd explained he was a nerd by looks only and a failure of a doctor's son, so he decided to become a musician. After seeing the distraction work, Nobuaki convinced Daisuke to form a band, making the nerd invite Nobuaki and his friends over to his house. They were welcomed to his vast estate, making their houses look like guest house toilets. They were even more surprised after seeing his collections of instruments. After hearing the room was soundproof and safe for playing, they rocked out like an average garage rock band and had fun till they couldn't anymore. While they rested, Daisuke told Nobuaki he could keep the electric guitar after he died, but Nobuaki rejected it, claiming he would live. After another rock session with the clock striking 12, they celebrated that Daisuke survived. When he thanked his friends, Daisuke left the room to get more soda, leaving Nobuaki and Naoya alone. Just then, Nobuaki received a call from Chiemi and picked it, jokingly talking to her, but after hearing that the time wasn't actually 12, his despair came back. Also panicking, Naoya showed Nobuaki his phone with a message telling them the order from the game had been completed. Desperately, Nobuaki rushed to find Daisuke, only to arrive too late. Daisuke was already gone. When Nobuaki ended his recap, he told Natsuko she had no other choice, as the thug who saw the still human SpongeBob on the ground was now eager to get on with the special exercise that would save his life. When the ruffian named Teruaki tried to grab her, she brushed him off, grabbing Nobuaki to take her first time, but the boy wouldn't risk it, asking her to comply with the rules. After Teruaki grabbed her and forced her to the floor, Amy, a friend of Natsuko, tried to pull him back, but got pushed, forcing Natsuko to kick him away. She got up with a different aura, and the psychopath in her released, telling Nobuaki that she assumed he would be useful after surviving the game. She took off her shirt and told Teruaki to prepare himself for the special exercise. After seeing Natsuko, Nobuaki grabbed her to stop being uncouth and do it in a private place, but she pushed him away, calling him a hypocrite. When he called her again, she asked him to follow her to another part of the park. After they got there, she asked what plan he had to survive, and he told her he was willing to cooperate with the class. But Natsuko wasn't pleased with his idea, telling him she wondered why he was helping people who attempted to lynch him. He told her he held no grudges, but she felt irritated at his goody two-shoes behavior, causing her to try strangling him. When he freed himself, she threw her shirt at him and screamed for help, claiming he was trying to force her into special exercises. When the other members of the class got there, a thug pulled his hair, while the others chastised him. When he tried to explain, the ruffians beat him up, making sure he was on the bridge between life and death. Natsuko went over to the classmate named Mizuki and asked her to send one of her death orders to Nobuaki, turning into a mini-devil that compelled her to do wicked things. When Nobuaki thought it was over for him, another classmate named Kenta appeared ready to save the day. After arriving, Kenta walked towards the group of classmates, wondering what got them together. But when he looked to the ground, he saw the human SpongeBob, causing him to almost throw up. When he looked towards the class, he saw Nobuaki half beaten to death and rushed over to him, asking what happened. When the class couldn't give an answer, he instantly knew Nobuaki was lynched by the others. Nobuaki finally spoke up in his beaten state, thanking Kenta for trusting him, but Kenta didn't want the apology as he didn't know what happened. After seeing the commotion at the front, Natsuko moved forward without her top, making Kenta panic, as his dweebness had never seen a girl like that before. When Natsuko finished wearing it, she told Kenta he interrupted the fun part, triggering an argument from the boy, who asked her what was fun about bullying a classmate. Not wanting to engage him anymore, Natsuko handed over Mizuki's phone to her, telling her to send her 2 dye orders to Nobuaki and Kenta, but Mizuki refused. When Nobuaki asked her to send it to himself and Natsuko, Natsuko warned her against against it, telling her it was for the best to get rid of Kenta. When Mizuki couldn't take the pressure anymore, she freaked out and threw her phone on the floor, accidentally breaking it. After seeing Mizuki had gotten rid of her phone, Natsuko disappointedly scoffed at her, calling her a waste as she had sacrificed her life since she couldn't obey the orders anymore. Suddenly, Kenta dragged Natsuko and threw her to the ground, calling her a freak who was pleased with the death of her classmates. Riena, another classmate, supported Kenta, saying Natsuko had lost her way, and after realizing Nobuaki was still on the ground, almost beaten to death, Kenta grabbed him up and prepared to take him to a hospital. Before they left, Mizuki joined them, panicking that she would be dead soon, and when Natsuko tried to tease them that she would come as well, Kenta palmed her face, not wanting to deal with the maniac. Before long, the three were on their way to the hospital, with Nobuaki hurting on Kenta's back. While they walked, Mizuki stopped and asked Kenta whether she would die, and Kenta assured her she would be protected, as he used his order from the King's game to protect her. After getting the attention of the two people with him, Nobuaki told them the game would result in a series of regrettable decisions, continuing the story from when he played. After Daisuke died, another order was sent, asking the class to poll between Naoya and a girl named Kana. When some of the class girls tried to argue against it, Nobuaki convinced the class to go along with it, as Kana agreed as well. Later that day, Nobuaki told Naoya that they would hold the polls by noon, and he didn't have to worry, but Naoya was unsure what he would do. After seeing their friend panic, the pair assured him they would secure the votes and make sure nothing happened to him. Some minutes later, Nobuaki approached Mitsuki, telling her he needed her help to save Naoya, but before he could convince her, Kena appeared, begging her friend for her life. When Mitsuki lamented that she couldn't choose either, Nobuaki got on his knees and began begging Mitsuki for Naoya, claiming he didn't want to lose another friend like Daisuke. When Kana called him a coward for using Daisuke, who saved her life, Naoya appeared, telling her he was on his knees for another person, something a coward would never do. After hearing Daisuke, Mitsuki agreed to vote for Naoya as a tribute to Daisuke, who linked up with her, saving her life. Upset at the actions of her friend, Kani left the class angrily, determined to win at all costs. She approached a cholesterol ambassador outside the school, offering him special exercise, while teasing him with her jugs if he voted for her. Unfortunately for her, Shuda saw her and met up with Nobuaki, who was preparing the poll box. He apologized to Nobuaki about Daisuke, not knowing that his actions had consequences, but Nobuaki brushed it off, claiming it was also his fault. After hearing about Kana's new moves from Shouda, Nobuaki checked it out by asking another ugly classmate if he would vote for Naoya, forcing the classmate to say yes, but making him understand they were in a tough position. At noon, the poll was held, with classmates voting till it was all in the box. After counting the majority of the votes and ending at a 15-15 tie, which shocked Kana, Nobuaki was left with the last vote, slowly opening it to get momentum. When she couldn't bear it anymore, Kana seized the paper from Nobuaki and slowly opened it, eventually seeing her name and celebrating. But after Nobuaki opened it up, she was being apologized to by the final voter, who chose Naoya. After realizing and panicking that she lost, Kana angrily exited the class using the window, never to be seen again. Later that day, Nobuaki explained to Naoya that he deceived the other guys into voting for him and called himself a monster, but Naoya assured him he was a hero who saved his life. That night, while Nobuaki, Naoya, and Chiemi talked at Nobuaki's house, a text from the King's game dropped. It stated that because Kana was gone before completing her punishment, it would be transferred to Naoya. He was now asked to perform a special exercise within 10 minutes, or he would be a goner as well, forcing a tough decision on Nobuaki. He took Chiemi and threw her into a room with Naoya, locking the door. When Naoya cried, saying he didn't want to perform a special exercise with Chiemi, Nobuaki opened the door and told him it was for his life. After realizing Naoya would never agree, Nobuaki punched him unconscious and asked Chiemi to do it while he was out like a blown candle. After saving Naoya, Chiemi came out and hugged Nobuaki, telling him how much she loved him and making him promise to never leave her alone. After ending his recap, he told Kenta and Mizuki he was a bad boyfriend, but they didn't mind it, as they saw him as a hero all the more. Meanwhile, at the park, Natsuko continued creeping out the other students. After seeing a call from Nobuaki's abandoned phone, she saw it was Kenta and prepared to make her move. When the gang couldn't reach Nobuaki's phone after calling, they gave up on it, believing Natsuko wouldn't let it go. Kenta offered to go get Nobuaki's phone while he went to the hospital, but Nobuaki refused, saying he had somewhere else he wanted to go. When Kenta asked where, he told them about a village where the King's Game started 30 years ago. The village was peaceful till a piece of paper appeared, starting the King's Game and ruining the village, eventually leaving it empty. After hearing the tale, Kenta and Mizuki offered to follow Nobuaki and stick together. Later in the day, they boarded a ride to a place close to the village. After seeing what Mizuki wore, Nobuaki asked her if she was comfortable in it for a mission of that nature, and after checking her sneakers, she assured them she was fine. She admitted she was weaker than them, but she wouldn't let some little flashes of her special underclothing bother her. After getting the clothing issue past them, she asked whether Natsuko was right about her losing her chances to live by wrecking the phone, and Kenta assured her he would simply move her information to another. When Nobuaki looked at the scared Mizuki, he saw she was similar to one of his former classmates. Kenta asked Nobuaki whether it was possible to meet the king, but Nobuaki was unable to answer, telling them his class assumed the king was among them. In his former class, an order was obeyed by a classmate named Nami, and when Nobuaki saw the details, he freaked out. He called Nami and asked her why she chose to give herself the order of touching the king, and Nami told him it was because she knew he was suspecting the king of being a classmate. He responded, shouting that she could die if she didn't complete it, but Nami assured him she would be fine, as she simply wanted to confirm the king was not in the class. After she convinced him to allow her to do it, she thanked him and ended the call, leaving Nobuaki with deep thoughts about the evil game. Later that day at school, Nobuaki took Nami to the front of the class and revealed her daring plan to expose the king. After getting their approval, she began to touch the students from Nobuaki's order, hoping they would receive a message that revealed the identity of the king. After checking through most of the class, the next in turn was Ria, the class black horse, who most of the class already suspected. When Nami tried to touch her, she claimed she was the king, causing Nami to stop. When she was confronted by the class, she asked them what they would do to the king, telling them it would be a waste. The king never died. Nobuaki began panicking with the words of Ria, and when she placed Nami's hand on herself, returning no message, Nobuaki began to lose it, eventually needing Naoya to calm him down. When it was Chiami's turn, Nami began to panic, shouting at Chiami that she would be okay. After she touched Chiami, Nobuaki's phone beeped. However, it wasn't the king's game, but his phone getting a message from a sports game. Before long, Nami had touched all the students in the class, causing Nobuaki to panic while she ran out. When Chiami tried to grab her, telling her to hold on, Nami pushed her to the ground, asking to be alone. Nobuaki passed by, confirming Chiami was all right, before chasing after Nami. He searched all over the city and tried calling her line, but none of them were fruitful. After remembering one of her favorite spots, he ran over to it and found her crying on the staircase. He assured her she wouldn't die, so she begged him to stay with her until midnight. They chatted into the night, till eventually 60 seconds remained. Nami prepared to confess her true feelings to him, but after remembering he had Chiame, she stopped. When the clock struck 12, her punishment came down, with the game ordering her into eternal darkness. Nobuaki couldn't understand the punishment and looked at Nami, eventually realizing that she could no longer see. She cried that she had become blind, while Nobuaki continued to beg her until he received a message of his own commanding him to lose something important. While he freaked out, Nami asked him whether the order of the day belonged to him, but he denied it, telling her it was nothing to worry about. Some moments later, she walked away to receive a phone call he told her about and asked what the order of the day was. After hearing it was for Nobuaki to lose something important to him, she knew what she had to do. When Nobuaki woke up later in the morning, he couldn't find Nami and freaked out, asking where a blind person would be. After calling Naoya and realizing she wasn't at school, he ran all over the city looking for her. When he called her, she picked up, telling him she knew his order. She asked if she was important to him, and he told her to stop being a psychopath, as he would protect her. She told him she couldn't bear to see anything happen to him, so she would make him lose herself. Nobuaki immediately ran home and broke everything in his room, hoping it would obey the command. But when he called Nami, she apologized to him, telling him not to worry. After hearing the sound of water, he ran towards the beach, breaking up with Chiame to protect Nami. However, when he got there, Nami was already gone, leaving her phone and a message that confessed love to him. While he cried in pain at his loss, the black horse, Ria, appeared, telling him to put a plug in his emotional leakage. When Ria dropped down, she called Nami a wimp for forcefully exiting the game, causing Nobuaki to grab her by the collar, ready to beat her up. After seeing Nobuaki was serious, she asked him to do what he wanted, as she was the king, but his dumbass continued to be reluctant. She told him Nami didn't touch her, but rather she made Nami do it, hence she could still be the king. But Nobuaki didn't buy the yap and pushed her to the ground. He warned her that if he found out she was the king, he would get rid of her. But Ria was uninterested in the claims, as she told him he lacked the resolve. She brought out a stun gun and zapped him down, telling him he needed to have a stronger will to survive the game. After getting the message across to him that he would die with his tactics, Ria left. At a convenience store somewhere in the city, a couple from the class drank their juice, and when the girl asked how much longer they needed to play the game, the guy assured her they would be fine, as he was researching the game, ready to put an end to it. The girl's name was Corey, while the boy was named Yusuke, and after setting the game aside, they talked till they parted ways, promising each other they would last in the devilish game. Later that night, Naoya told Nobuaki about the new deaths from the game, even though Nobuaki was uninterested, recovering from his loss of Nami. Just then, he received a phone call, which he picked up and discovered to be Yusuke. They discussed the game, eventually finding out that all the victims were sent letters after they were gone. When Nobuaki asked what Yusuke knew about Ria, he was unable to get an answer, as only the rumors that her dad was a maniac were available to them. Yusuke rounded up the call, telling Nobuaki that if anything went wrong with him, he would leave Kaori in his hands. Just as they ended the call, another order came, this time telling them to do nothing unnecessary against the king's game. Seconds later, classmates began to drop like pests swimming in pesticide. Nobuaki tried to contact Chiemi, asking Naoya to contact the rest, but when he couldn't reach his girlfriend, he called Shuta, one of the victims. Shuta picked up the call and apologized to Nobuaki, telling him he blocked the game before passing on. When the call dropped, Naoya told him most of the guys went ahead to block the game, while another girl deactivated her phone. After seeing it was a horrendous war zone, Nobuaki ran to Chiemi's house, calling his remaining classmates to warn them against blocking the game. When he called one of the less popular females, she confirmed that she wasn't doing anything, but still passed on as well. After getting in contact with another classmate, he realized they weren't allowed to cry, causing him to break down halfway. Before reaching Chiemi, he received a call from Yusuke, who now had new information. He told Nobuaki about the village, renewing hope in his heart, but Yusuke was unable to make it, as the game deemed his actions unnecessary and eliminated him. When Kaori received her next call, she found out it wasn't Yusuke, but Nobuaki, and Yusuke had gone, leaving her alone. While Nobuaki was waiting for his ride to the village, he was suddenly attacked at the back of his head, knocking him out. When he gained consciousness, he was in the gym storage with Corey, angrily looking at him. She accused him of being an incompetent leader and letting Yusuke die before she could get her feelings across to him. After hearing the allegations, he denied it, telling her Yusuke loved her as well, which was why he left him in charge of ending the game once and for all. She remembered Yusuke saving her from bullies when they were young and decided to spare Nobuaki, releasing him from his knot. Before she could complete it, she cried, eliminating her as well, and making Nobuaki fail his promise to Yusuke. While Nobuaki grieved over the immense amount of losses, a mysterious figure appeared, picking up his phone and checking the game notifications, confirming Kaori and Yusuke had been eliminated. Ria appeared at the storage house, telling Nobuaki that she didn't care if he died, but she wanted the information he got from Yusuke. Ending the recap there, he told Mizuki that she would be alright, so long as she could receive messages from the king's game. They boarded a car and asked Nobuaki to continue the story, hoping it wouldn't trigger more of his suppressed emotions. Naoya waited at Nobuaki's, calling him to no avail. When he received a call back, he assumed it was Nobuaki, but it was actually one of the class ruffians. After picking up the call, he asked what the ruffian wanted from him, eventually discovering the ruffian was scared over the next game. They were asked to pick a person to roll a dice, and the number they rolled would choose how many people, as well as the roller, would get punished. When Naoya assured them they would get a solution after contacting Nobuaki, the ruffians ended the call, hoping a solution would come through. They calculated their options, thinking about who was the most likely spinner to ensure sure they wouldn't get punished, and canceled out Chia, who was the female demon of the class. Meanwhile, Naoya continued to worry about Nobuaki, resolving that he would protect Chiemi till his friend came back. Suddenly, he received a message from Ria asking all the classmates to meet at a park in the city. While they waited there, one of the remaining female classmates ended a call, confirming that another classmate had been punished. The thug got up, upset that Ria was wasting their time while Nobuaki was nowhere to be found. After hearing his ramblings, Chiemi assured them that they simply needed to work together, with another class nerd supporting her point. Seeing the weak link, the ruffian approached the nerd, telling him to roll the die while creeping him out, but Chia, the nasty classmate, took a shot at him, telling him no one in their right mind would vote for him. The boy felt offended and claimed she was the worst of them all, lacking in looks and intellect. But Chia wouldn't take it lying down, as she compared him to a rotten coconut and a kindergarten dropout. While they continued to nab each other, Nobuaki appeared with Ria, telling the class to calm down. When Chiemi saw her lost love, she tripped on a stone while trying to run into his arms like a romance sled, eventually needing his help to get up. The class ruffian shouted at Ria for coming late, even though she proposed the meeting, and thanked her as she brought more possible people to die. When Naoya told him to shut up, he threw a strong right, falling Naoya to the ground. Toshiyuki, his buddy, warned him to stop, as they could simply work together, but the ruffian would not listen, telling Toshiyuki his best chance was to roll the dice for them. When Toshiyuki panicked and tried to roll the dice, Nobuaki jumped him, forcing him to stop. Now, knowing that they would be in his way, the ruffian grabbed Chiemi and took a knife from his pocket, denting the lap of Chiemi, while asking either Nobuaki or Naoya to roll. After collecting the die from Toshiyuki in an effort to save his girlfriend, Nobuaki prepared to toss it, but he was immediately intercepted by Naoya, who remembered they saved his life before and tossed the die. Unfortunately for him, he tossed 6, leaving him with little options. When the nerd asked him to choose the absent classmate, Naoya screamed his name accidentally in an attempt to keep him quiet, causing the game to select the nerd for punishment. After choosing an absent classmate, along with Chia and another girl, Naoya was left with his friends and the ruffians. When Nobuaki told him he had to choose him, Naoya remained skeptical, till the ruffian threatened him once again. In the most surprising way possible, Toshiyuki punched the ruffian, allowing Chiemi to escape and Naoya to have free will. Toshiyuki asked for himself and his friend to be chosen, a decision the ruffian didn't agree with. When the ruffian dared Naoya to choose him, his offer was taken, as Toshiyuki and himself were chosen, leaving only the Nobuaki group and Ria. After Naoya was eliminated, Ria took his phone to check his letters, adding them to her research of the game. She explained that after the incident at the village, researchers discovered the game was actually a virus spread on the internet, which used hypnosis to create suggestions that made the players get eliminated. So, using the skills of her genius programmer father, she was able to generate an antivirus. When she uploaded it, they waited as the system locked on, attacking the game from the inside. However, after the antivirus was uploaded, things took a turn for the worst, with Ria being eliminated in a fiery blaze. Feeling like a heat blast as she lost, she took her punishment, leaving the couple like a phoenix hero. When Nobuaki ended the flashback, they had already reached the pathway to the village, ready to face the king's game head-on. After a long journey, at last, they reached Yonaki village, discovering a gap in the barricade that allowed them enter the eerie, abandoned town. Nobuaki asked Kenta and Mizuki to follow him in, and while they walked in the pathway, the group heard a creepy sound spooking Mizuki out. However, she was calmed down by Kenta, who assured her it was just the breeze. After comforting Mizuki, Kenta asked Nobuaki how he planned on dealing with Mizuki's death message task. Nobuaki explained that it was best to send one to Natsuko and the other to Haruka, as the initial would be a class problem, while the other was gone anyway, since her task was impossible to fulfill. While they argued the necessity to do either, Mizuki showed them that the other side of the pathway was unblocked, making Nobuaki realize that the workers who sealed the village were scared of getting into it. As they walked around, they saw the haunted landscape, eventually reaching the village, which looked creepy as well. They walked around the village, hoping to see something useful, till Nobuaki stopped at a building with the name Honda. The other two were too scared to follow him in, so they decided he could check out the house while they waited outside. He walked into the house and checked a room where he saw a portrait. As Nobuaki looked at the picture, his heart sank. It was a picture of Chiemi with her father. This was her home. While he read a letter addressed to Chiemi, he heard Kenta looking for Mizuki, forcing him to pack up immediately and go outside. Kenta looked around the village, hoping to find Mizuki, and when he did, she creeped up to him, telling him goodbye and apologizing to Kenta for being a burden. He checked his phone and saw 7 other classmates had died, with only 2 others completing their task, causing him to panic. Meanwhile, Nobuaki continued looking for them, till eventually, he stumbled upon a notebook beside a corpse. When he checked the picture in the notebook, he saw Chiemi had a sister, eventually putting 2 and 2 together to discover Natsuko was also her sister. He thought back at the actions of the maniac and confirmed that she had played the King's game before. At the other end of the village, Mizuki told Kenta she would be leaving him and sending her death messages to herself and Natsuko, but Kenta opposed it, claiming he would never let her do it. Feeling pleased at his response, she told him she was in love and wished for him to compliment her, but not wanting to indulge in a cringe dialogue, Kenta couldn't give her an answer. She tearfully ran away, knowing she had passed her message, but Kenta wouldn't let her go, as he dragged her by the arms and pulled her closer. He told her he also liked her and proceeded to kiss her, shutting up any form of reply she had. After affirming his love, the psycho in her got released, compelling him to leave the realm with her. When he tried to oppose it, she shut him up with a kiss, nullifying his senses. He regained composure again and told her there was only happiness and warmth on Earth, but she refused to listen to his yapping. When he realized there was nothing more he could do, he punched her in the gut, knocking her out. Later that night, he arrived at a cell phone tower, taking Mizuki's phone and using it to send out the messages. After sending them, he received notifications on his phone, one from Mizuki, while the other was from the game, informing them of a task completion. He looked onto the village and apologized to Nobuaki for leaving him out of the loop. Nobuaki, on the other hand, ran around the village looking for his friends, and after he saw the radio tower, he instantly knew they were up there. In a morgue somewhere else, Haruka tried to fulfill her order, but she was unable to, with 5 minutes left, causing her to throw her phone to the floor, smashing it. Another classmate, on the other hand, had destroyed her home and committed a massacre, still not fulfilling her task to lose something important. When she tried to get rid of her dog, she couldn't bring herself to do it, inevitably setting her up for punishment. When Nobuaki got to the tower, Kenta was knee down in front of Mizuki, looking at her phone in surprise. After checking on Mizuki, Nobuaki asked what was going on, collecting the phone, and seeing she had 60 seconds to complete her task. Kenta explained that he sent a message to Natsuko and himself, but he was still up and running, meaning it had no effect. Nobuaki lay his head on Kenta's back, apologizing for the loss of Mizuki, till he remembered Kenta used his order to protect Mizuki, meaning he would be eliminated if she was as well. When Nobuaki asked Kenta why he did something so dumb, Kenta apologized, telling Nobuaki that he couldn't face him anymore. After Nobuaki placed his head on Kenta's back again, Kenta fell to the ground, beginning to feel his punishment. He told Nobuaki not to worry, and asked him to leave him be with Mizuki, which Nobuaki complied to. After Mizuki woke up, she saw Kenta aiming to meet her while struggling, but she could only struggle as well, given she was also facing a punishment. Before they could touch, they both got eliminated, thus ending their story. When Nobuaki came back, he set them up together, hoping they had an eternity of happiness. Just then, he received a call from his number, and when he picked it up, the horrible demon Natsuko was on the other end of the line, laughing at the elimination of the wannabe couple. Natsuko asked Nobuaki how he felt losing more classmates, causing him to boil inside. She explained that she had waited for Mizuki's message all day and completed her task after seeing it, expecting it to confuse Kenta. She already told them Mizuki was done after smashing the phone, so she wanted to play with their hopes, ensuring she properly crushed Kenta. When Nobuaki attempted to scream at her, she reminded him she was with his phone and could easily get rid of him anytime, forcing him into composure. Then, she ended the call, claiming she would get rid of him once and for all. After leaving Natsuko and ending the special exercise, Teruoki hid in a toilet, hoping to call someone and escape from the maniac who had him in her clutches, but he was too late, as she was already knocking on the door, asking what he was doing. When she continued to pressure him, he broke down, asking her to leave him alone. After seeing there was no longer any pressure on the door, he attempted to use his phone again, only to be caught by Natsuko, who collected the phone and stared down at him like a demon. At another stall, Amy looked at her friend, who had now become a monster. Later that day, Nobuaki read through the notebook from the Honda father while waiting for a bus home. He discovered that Ria's theory was correct, and they needed all the letters to stand a chance against the king. Just then, he received a call on Kenta's phone from a classmate named Riona. She told him she had information on the game, and she would only disclose it when he got there. So Nobuaki assured her he would meet up at her house by noon. When he got there, Riona came out, asking him why he was late, but Nobuaki was confused, as he told her he'd get there by noon. She immediately forgot her complaint and asked Nobuaki to follow her, surprising the boy, who asked her why they were leaving. She explained that she couldn't invite him over, as she didn't want her parents to see her with a guy like him. When they got to the playground, she told him she had looked into the game and saw it had happened previously. She showed him the game had happened in a school that Natsuko attended, mentioning the name Ria, which recalled a memory of Nobuaki. After hearing the name, Nobuaki grabbed her arms, asking Riona where she got the name, forcing her to push him off and request his composure. When he asked again in a normal fashion, she told him she discovered the name after looking into the school and researching his former one, eventually seeing the message Ria left for him. After giving her explanation, she asked him what he knew about the game and who Ria was. So Nobuaki calmly responded to all her questions. He told her everything he knew, from the game details to the information of the letters from the book, which she told him she collected as well. After seeing Natsuko rummage through the lifeless SpongeBob, she showed him a collection from the game before and the one they were playing, making Nobuaki realize they were the same. He fell on the ground, thanking his stars that the deaths of the others were not in vain, eventually grabbing Riona's hand, thanking her for giving him hope, which made her blush. Just then, Natsuko appeared, teasing the two about their relationship. She told them they needed to go to the field to play the game from the king's order, but before answering, Nobuaki requested a private conversation with Natsuko. When they were alone, he asked her whether she killed someone while playing the game the first time. After she confirmed it, he asked her whether it was someone close to her, which she confirmed as well. He told her it was psychopathic to think the way she did, but she didn't care, telling him it was none of his business. He retaliated, telling her it was, as he dated her lost sister in the previous game, almost baiting Natsuko to become softer. When he tried to speak more sense into her, she told him he was a naive optimist, and she would not succumb to his ideals just because he dated her blood. After getting it through to him that she wouldn't be cooperative, they left for the other game, ready to face their losses. They got to the circle of friends and took seats on the ground, ready to play another freaky, disastrous game. The rules stated they needed to break left fingers to earn debts and break right fingers to earn positives, moves that would be transferable to other players, as the player with the most debt would be eliminated. Natsuko let it be known that her maniac was still loose, causing Nobuaki to bother, as the last player of the game would be Amy, her friend, who could probably pass a debt if Natsuko wished. Teruaki offered to make a suggestion, which the class decided to listen to. He proposed that the class stop the infighting, with everybody choosing the pass option, meaning they didn't have to break any fingers, and all classmates would survive. But Natsuko was uninterested in the approach, warning Teruaki to sit his dumbass down, as she possessed his phone. She started the game, and the classmate named Ryo, beside Nobuaki, whispered into his ear that he was in support of Teruaki's idea. The game started with the first student choosing to pass, meaning the next turn was for Nobuaki. Ryu assured him that it was safe to pass, as the class had no interest in passing debts to him. After seeing the first two pass, the other classmates decided to pass as well, till it was Teruaki's turn. Before he played, he requested Nobuaki follow him so they could discuss, which Nobuaki did. His dumbass decided to waste time, giving Nobuaki a haircut, while telling off Natsuko, who tried to stop him. While rounding up the haircut, Teruaki told Nobuaki he planned on becoming a stylist. He thanked Nobuaki for giving him a chance at trying out his dream, before snapping one of his right fingers, causing Nobuaki and Natsuko to panic. When Teruaki dropped to the ground in agony, Nobuaki rushed up to him, telling him he loved the haircut, while in tears. Confirming that he had done a good job, Teruaki swore to get their phones back, pushing Nobuaki before grabbing a rock to destroy his left hand. With a brutal swing, Teruaki shattered his left hand, then turned to Natsuko, demanding their phones. After hearing the demand, she asked what he planned on doing with the debt if she gave him the phones, and Teruaki stated he would keep them till the game was over. He told them that he was done with his stylist dream and had no intention of continuing with a broken arm. After Nobuaki received the phones from Natsuko, Teruaki's bipolarity hit as he gave 4 debt points to Natsuko, 1 debt to Amy, and his last positive to Nobuaki. When Natsuko accused him of going against the deal, he told her he promised not to give her all of the debt, tricking her into sacrificing the phones. Unfortunately for Natsuko, next was her turn, and although she was sick in the head, she couldn't sacrifice her fingers, leaving her with no choice but to pass and hope the other students offered her one of their right fingers. Teruaki laughed at her, telling her none of the other classmates would offer it, even Amy, who she saw as a friend. He explained that they had set up the scenario beforehand, with Amy asking that she be given a negative point. After hearing the claim, Natsuko asked Amy why she betrayed her, but she would receive no answer, as her friend was silent. Nobuaki and Ryu asked Teruaki to rest and go to bed, but he told them they needed not to worry, as he would see Natsuko through till the end. Ryu assured Nobuaki it wasn't revenge, but a ploy to get their class together and face the game. Natsuko tried to beg Amy to save her, but Amy was reluctant, claiming Natsuko wasn't addressing the right issues. When Natsuko got tired of begging, she grabbed the rock Teruaki dropped and charged towards Ami, dropping her to the ground. She took up the rock and prepared to smash Amy's fingers, causing Ami to go through a flashback. She remembered getting a negative point, hoping Natsuko would save them, cause they were friends, and hoped if Natsuko would beg, it would be due to their friendship. But the girl in front of her was simply a psychopath, gone from their world. When Natsuko landed the first hit, she realized it was over as she began to scream, with Natsuko constantly smashing the fingers. Nobuaki charged in and got Natsuko off, holding her to the ground like a criminal and telling her Amy was never going to give her the points. But Natsuko called him a fool, as she had pressured Amy just the way she wanted. She called out to Amy, playing the talk no jutsu card by reminding her just how much fun they had together and how she brought her up when she was still a class nerd, making Amy give her 4 positive points to Natsuko. When Nobuaki asked Amy why she was stupid enough to give Natsuko her points, she told them that she was Natsuko's friend and it was her duty to save her. After hearing Amy's yap, Natsuko offered her a hand before breaking the last working finger on her right, shocking the class once again. She told Amy she did it to save her from the negative point, ending the game brutally. Natsuko hugged Amy, consoling her for her loss during the game, while Nobuaki looked on at the retarded display from the delusional friend. Later that day, he waited for Teruaki and Amy at the hospital. After seeing Amy and Natsuko, he approached them, asking Amy if she was fine. He proceeded to ask Natsuko whether she had learnt her lesson from the game, but she denied it, telling him there was no point in being a soggy marshmallow if it only ended up in defeat. She assured him that she would prove he was a fraudulent optimist, asking him to join her and the class under a bridge. While he thought about how bad the case of Natsuko, who left, was, Teruaki kicked him from the back, surprising Nobuaki. After seeing the state of his hand, Nobuaki apologized, telling Teruaki he could have done better. But Teruaki told him it didn't matter, as even though he couldn't use his left hand, he could still live with his right. Teruaki asked where Ryu was, and Nobuaki told him the joyful boy had gone to get him a recovery gift. They decided to head over to the bridge so they could get over with Natsuko's meeting. When they got there, Nobuaki greeted the other classmates and told them he had more to share. He explained that if they wanted to survive, they needed to rely on each other, but Natsuko appeared, shutting him and his ideals up. When she attempted to challenge him, she saw he was crying, sad that her dumbass hadn't learnt anything from the previous game. She grabbed his shirt, calling him a naive moron who thought he was the hero of the story. She told the class that she had played the game before and ended it by killing the person she hated the most. She remembered she was ignored by the person she loved, who jumped off a cliff, so she rested her head on Nobuaki, hoping to get some breathing space. Suddenly, the clock struck 12, and the psycho in her was released again, claiming she won. When Nobuaki checked his phone, he freaked out, as Natsuko had done the unpredictable. She told him that she knew Teruaki would betray her, so she blocked the game from having his access. A classmate suddenly shouted towards Teruaki as he was now bleeding and about to be eliminated. Nobuaki apologized to him, once again claiming it was his fault for the loss of another classmate. Natsuko appeared at his side, laughing at Teruaki. So Nobuaki asked her to shut up, as she had become a witch, worse than the evil stepmothers from Disney. Teruaki gave Nobuaki his parting goodbyes, thanking luck that Ryu wasn't around to see him get eliminated. While Nobuaki cried, Teruaki parted from them, eliminated from the game. But the sick Natsuko was disconcerted, kicking the still head like a ball. She told the other classmates that they were free to block the king like Teruaki, as it would only make things easier for them. Natsuko talked off any form of logic Nobuaki had to offer, eventually going to meet Amy to prevent her from joining Teruaki. Just then, Ryu appeared, breaking down as he saw the sight of his fallen friend. Natsuko had once again gotten away with a win at the expense of the class and important classmates. After the incident, the class was given the order to run to another city named Neko, in a game where whoever was last every 8 hours would be punished, while anyone who didn't get there by the next morning would be punished as well. While the others ran forward, Nobuaki continued grieving Teruaki, while Ryu was so astonished by the death that he began to run mad slowly. After stopping Ryu, Rihanna convinced Nobuaki to get up, as the clock was ticking and their lives were on the line. Nobuaki stood up, steeled his resolve, and grabbed Naoya, getting it through to him that Teruaki was gone and would only be sadder if he wasted his life as well. After Rihanna took Ryu away, Nobuaki concentrated on Amy, who was on the ground after Natsuko abandoned her to run at the front. When Amy told him she was fine getting eliminated, Nobuaki assured her he wasn't letting any man down, as he grabbed Amy and put her on his back, running towards the goal they were put up to. After getting carried for a while, Amy began to feel cringe, asking Nobuaki to drop her so she could run for herself. The pair picked up the pace, hoping to catch up with the rest of the class. Meanwhile, at the front, the classmates climbed a staircase, but when things were going fine, the classmate named Takuya threw down his friend Masayoshi for being slow. When the others asked him why he heartlessly did it, Takuya stated it was every man for himself, charging up the stairs in hope of survival. When a female tried to save Masayoshi, her friend warned her against it, as he'd only be a burden, causing them to lose. Nobuaki and Amy caught up to Rihanna, who had spent less time exercising than barbing up. He realized she needed rest, so he asked Amy to rest with her while he went to get something at the back. When Nobuaki left, Rihanna sat on the ground, thinking about how shitty their life had become due to the game. She told Amy she was tired and ready to give up, but Amy told her not to worry, as Nobuaki was there, matching their pace and ensuring nothing bad happened. While she wondered why Nobuaki was so concerned about them, the man of the hour appeared, offering them drinks to get back their energy. He opened up Amy's drink due to her injury, but eventually left before Rihanna, as she commanded him to go before her. After he left, she battled with her cane, a scene she didn't want Nobuaki to see. Before long, Nobuaki and Amy caught up to the other students, causing them to stop and regroup. When he asked after Masayoshi and Takuya, he was told Takuya had gone, but Masayoshi was abandoned due to what Takuya had done. After hearing what happened, Nobuaki asked Amy to continue with the group while he went to get Masayoshi. Rihanna continued running with her can, but her lack of exercise caught up to her, making her fall. When she looked up, ready to give up, Nobuaki appeared like a hero, apologizing for not opening her can as well. After he opened it, she drank up, blushing over the kind actions of her Prince Charming. While they waited for her to finish, Masayoshi appeared, surprised that Nobuaki and Rihanna were ahead of him. After getting themselves together, they continued to run, till Nobuaki's inner conscience reminded him Rihanna was athletically poor while Masayoshi was injured. When his inner demon tried to abandon them, he fought against it, telling the pair he would protect them no matter what. After seeing no trace of Nobuaki, Ryu called him, confirming he was okay, before receiving orders to progress to the island at any cost. Later that morning, it was almost time for the punishment, with Masayoshi, Nobuaki, and Rihanna at the back. They decided to stop at the waterside to look at the sunset. Rihanna told Nobuaki he needed to stop holding back, or they would only be burdens to him, but Nobuaki refused, swearing to protect them. When Masayoshi began feeling the effects of the fall, they sat on the railings in front of the sunset that shone over the sparkling sea. When Nobuaki looked at Rihanna, she reminded him of his first love, Chiemi, almost making him grab her, till Rihanna snapped him back into his senses. Suddenly, Masayoshi dropped into the sea, causing a panic. When Nobuaki tried to jump in to save him, Rihanna held him back, forcing him to push her away before he jumped. When he tried to pull Masayoshi up, he realized there was no point, as he had already gone, beaten by the cruelty of the game. When he wanted to give up on living, the friends he made along the way got him back to his feet, with Chiemi appearing, stealing his resolve to live. He swam to the top of the sea, apologizing to Rihanna as he had lost Masayoshi. As Nobuaki emerged from the sea, Rihanna hurried to his side, admitting, "I was almost starting to get worried about you," and he needed to worry about his own life as well. She hugged him, claiming she was trying to keep him warm, while crying that she never wanted to lose him. They continued running, with only 5 minutes to go till elimination. As they crossed the bridge, when it was 1 minute till punishment, Nobuaki paused, pretending to tie his shoelace. After the punishment came, Rihanna realized she had been set up by Nobuaki, who purposely waited behind her. Nobuaki had perfectly set himself behind Rihanna, hoping to sacrifice himself for her. But in a lucky break, the penalty was shifted to Masayoshi, who they left at the back. After seeing his tricks, Rihanna slapped Nobuaki, telling him he was a fool if he thought she didn't know what he was doing. He tried to avoid her questioning by continuing to run, causing her to feel irritated at his insensitivity. They continued running till eventually it was almost time for the next punishment. Takuya, who was in front, continued to run with all his might, hoping to avoid the punishment by all means. When Nobuaki and Rihanna saw they were out of time, they decided to choose who would live for the other. He proposed they play rock, paper, scissors, which Rihanna objected to, as it could lead to his death. But when he wasn't budging, she decided to follow his request. They played the game with Nobuaki winning, but rather than stay in front, he chose to remain at the back, telling Rihanna it was up to the winner to decide where he wanted. Upset he wasn't taking her seriously, she struck him with a literal low blow, dropping him to his knees. She proceeded to run backwards, telling Nobuaki not to follow her, but he wouldn't listen as he caught up and held her back. She told him she was ready to take one for the team, and, at the very least, she expected his next girlfriend to be just as good as her. When she tried to lament about how painful it was for her to meet him, he ran further backwards, leaving her to cry over his loss, as once he was out of sight, the punishment message dropped. Further forward, the class group looked at the victim, seeing Amy was last and would be the next eliminated person. Ami had given up on the race and ran back, hoping to save Nobuaki. After thanking him for saving her and appreciating Natsuko for being her friend, she happily got eliminated. When Nobuaki got back to Rihanna, he told her Amy was the victim, apologizing for his scare. He grabbed her hands, and they continued to charge towards the target. Nobuaki chose to tell her how his last game ended. The game commander had them kill their most loved ones, so knowing Nobuaki would never do it, Chiemi gave herself to the game, leaving Nobuaki screaming at the system, which marked it as a compliance from him. While they continued to run, Nobuaki remembered the final order from the game. Meanwhile, Natsuko had completed the task and reached Neko, so she chose to use her leftover time to deal with whoever was next coming towards the building. While Takuya walked, he fell into a trap, causing him to fall on the ground. Natsuko appeared in front of him, laughing, before getting rid of his leg, ensuring he wouldn't complete the task. When another classmate came, she attempted to confuse her using the paths, knowing that the classmate would be skeptical since she was a maniac. She successfully got the classmate to go towards the wrong path. While Ryu and another classmate rested, they were met by Nobuaki and Riona, who made it to the forest in time. Another female continued on the path, eventually tripping on Takuya, who couldn't progress. When he tried to beg her for help, she stepped on his face, calling him a useless waste. After leaving the trash behind and moving forward, she met another classmate who was lost due to Natsuko's confusion. When they couldn't agree where to go, they split up, with one eventually hanging off a cliff. After the other tried to help and realized it was too stressful, she let her friend go, aiming towards the spooky building that was their goal. When she got there, she met Natsuko, who creeped her out, till eventually she fell out of the competitions, rolling off a cliff. While on their way to the goal, the Nobuaki group was blocked by Natsuko as well, who planned on making sure they didn't make it, but Nobuaki wouldn't lose to a maniac as he charged towards Natsuko. Nobuaki charged right at Natsuko, knocking her aside like a linebacker, giving Ryu and Rihanna a chance to escape, but Natsuko wouldn't let it be that easy, as she grabbed his leg, gazing at him like a stage 5 psychopath. The other two continued to run, eventually reaching their goal, but when they saw no sign of Nobuaki, they began to panic. Suddenly, he appeared, pleasing Rihanna. She got jealous that he was carrying another girl, so she asked him to drop her so he could rest as well. While they analyzed the leftover members, a notification came, alerting them that the other classmates had been eliminated. Suddenly, Natsuko showed up, laughing at the situation, and when Nobuaki tried to blame her for the losses of the others, she denied it, claiming they got lost. When he tried to challenge her for her dubious acts, he was suddenly knocked out, shocking Natsuko as well. After Rihanna checked on Nobuaki, she asked why Ryu hit him down. The boy, who had now continued losing his senses, explained that their new mission was to create a human doll, causing Rihanna to panic, as it was impossible for them. When Ryu heard her complaint, he told her not to worry, as he'd give himself to the game. After seeing a fellow psycho, Natsuko handed over a chainsaw to the boy, asking him to knock himself out, and when Rihanna tried to stop him, he warned her using the chainsaw, telling her there was no point to her words. After getting it started with Natsuko's help, he set up himself as the first part of the doll. After he was eliminated, Natsuko picked up the chainsaw, ready to finish what he started, scaring Rihanna in the process. Before she could react, the girl in glasses, who Nobuaki brought, grabbed her by the neck, requesting she give back her Ryo, but Natsuko was tired of her ramblings and eliminated her as well with the chainsaw. Now left with Rihanna, she threatened her to do more work, forcing Rihanna to pull a Sakura by screaming for Nobuaki. And when Natsuko thought it was simply bull, Nobuaki got up, surprising her. He saw the two eliminated classmates on the ground, with Natsuko still holding the chainsaw, but she denied being involved with Ryu, as he set himself up, wanting to be strong. After seeing it all wasn't worth it, Nobuaki told Natsuko to stop the massacre and think of an actual way to end the game. When Natsuko heard Nobuaki yap about his ideals again, she lost it, calling him a fool. She asked what he knew, and Rihanna explained the letter phenomenon. After seeing the letters, Natsuko showed the ones she had as well, allowing the three to brainstorm about the virus causing the game. Natsuko clarified herself that she wasn't optimistic about ending the game, but simply wanted information she could use to survive. When they compared the letters together, they discovered the game wouldn't let any of them survive, killing Nobuaki's hopes. He realized the only way to end the game was for all of them to be eliminated, making Rihanna sad, as she didn't understand how they went from students to global threats in a few days. Natsuko was having none of it, as she swore she would survive. She grabbed Nobuaki by the neck and kicked Rihanna away, yelling that she would live through the game and escape after victory. She continued to choke Nobuaki till he was almost gone, forcing Rihanna to strike her with the chainsaw. After getting away from the maniac, Nobuaki apologized to Rihanna for being a failure. When she tried to confess to him, the psychopath rose again, taking Nobuaki down with her. She remembered Nobuaki reminded her of her first love, so she wouldn't leave him to be with Rihanna. Now with her love on the brink of death, Rihanna cried, as Nobuaki requested she survived with his last breath. When Nobuaki gained consciousness, he was in a flowery realm. He heard a voice from his side and saw Chiemi approach him, smiling. After they got up and hugged, he saw the rest of his classmates and friends, who he lost to the game. Meanwhile, Rihanna took his lifeless body in the real realm to the beach with her. She hoped she could summon Disney magic and wake him up with a true love's kiss, but it had no effect, as Nobuaki remained still. After realizing he was gone to another realm, she decides to follow him, flowing into the sea. Some years later, a set of students received a random message. The dark forces of the King's Order had returned to strike again. If you've gotten to this point of the video, let's confuse the fake fans by commenting Cyborg Bear. This story goes way beyond bizarre, don't you think? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you guys next time.